Discover how two kids unknowingly ignite an incredible life-changing revenge, uniting a CEO and their community in an epic showdown. Emma and Jake Thompson were the kind of kids who could turn a dull afternoon into an adventure. Growing up in a struggling suburb of Ohio, they'd learned early on how to make the best of what they had. Their father, a proud veteran left jobless, was now a distant memory, and their mother worked grueling night shifts just to keep food on the table. But in the face of all that, the siblings remained hopeful, fueled by a fiery spirit and a heartwarming bond. One sun-drenched afternoon, the sound of laughter filled the air as they chased after Sparky, a scruffy little dog that belonged to Mrs. Jenkins next door. With each bark and yip, Sparky ran like the wind, zigzagging down the cracked sidewalks and darting through the clusters of houses that made up their neighborhood. "Don't let him get away!" Jake shouted, his heart racing as he and Emma sprinted after the spirited pup. Their giggles turned into shouts as they hurtled past the weeds and rusting cars lining the street, oblivious to the world around them. But Sparky's path led them to an unexpected discovery underneath the shade of an old oak tree. A strange gathering unfolded. It was Richard Hale, the wealthy CEO whose golden smile and tailored suit suggested he was the ultimate embodiment of the American dream. But as they crept closer, their innocent curiosity shifted to disbelief. They witnessed a surreptitious exchange of cash, the sound of crumpled bills rustling in the air. "You better keep quiet about this, or you'll regret it," Richard sneered to a worn-down man who looked just as wary as the Thompson siblings felt. For an instant, the world stood still. Emma's chest tightened. "Did we just find an embezzlement ring?" she whispered, her eyes wide. Jake nodded, fear mingled with excitement sparking through them. They had stumbled upon something dangerous, something that might change everything. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. With adrenaline surging through their veins, they gathered the courage to approach their neighbors, enlisting help. Mrs. Jenkins, the kind elderly widow, rallied the kids around the single father across the street, who was desperate to support his children. The tight-knit community, once faded under the weight of hard times, began to shine as they united for a cause: the fight against Richard Hale's apparent corruption. But as their efforts grew, so did Richard's retaliatory tactics. The tension escalated. When he targeted Mr. Thompson, a beloved community friend, it set off alarms. Fear crept in. Tears pooled in Emma's eyes as she watched Mr. Thompson shake under Richard's interrogation, indignation flaring like wildfire among the neighbors. Just when it seemed they had the numbers to challenge this titan of privilege, Richard slipped through their fingers. The community's hope teetered on the edge of despair. Emma clutched Jake's hand, uncertainty flickering in her chest. The fight against overwhelming power felt daunting now. Would they be able to expose the truth? Would they unite their neighbors? Their hearts heavy and spirits bruised, the story was just beginning to unfold. Would they rise as champions of justice, or would they succumb to the very fear they sought to conquer? The sun hung low in the sky, painting the world around Emma and Jake in hues of orange and gold. But the warm colors couldn't dispel the chill that had settled in their hearts. After witnessing the seedy exchange between Richard Hale and the unknown man, fear twisted within them like a coiled spring. They knew they had to act, but doubt clouded their minds. "Maybe we should tell Mom," Jake suggested, a tremor in his voice. Emma shook her head, her determination igniting. "No, it's not just about us. We can't let this go. Not after what Richard did to Mr. Thompson. He needs to be stopped." Jake looked hesitantly at the houses lining their street, his instinct screaming that they were in over their heads. But Emma's confidence pulled him back into the fray. She was the fire, and he was the log destined to burn alongside her. They gathered their neighbors again, a huddled mass of doubt, hope, and shared fear. Mrs. Jenkins spoke up, her voice soft yet steady. "This man thinks he can walk all over us because we're struggling. But we have each other. We can expose him." A murmur of agreement passed through the crowd. As arms crossed and brows furrowed, Emma felt the collective heartbeat of her community. There was power in their unity, electricity in the air. She spotted Mr. Ramirez, the single father, shaking his head. "But what if he comes after us? His reach is long. Then we fight back." Emma exclaimed, an unexpected fire roaring in her. "We will gather evidence. We will be smart. If we all stand together, he won't scare us into silence." Fellow residents began to nod, fueled by her passion. They decided to plan a meeting later that night, where Emma and Jake would share everything they'd witnessed. As they broke apart, the weight of their decision settled on their shoulders. They were stepping into a world where shadows lurked around every corner. That night, the living room was dimly lit. Emma and Jake sat side by side on their mother's well-worn couch, the air thick with anticipation. As neighbors trickled in, faces reflected a mix of skepticism and determination. "I still think this is a bad idea," Mr. Fennell murmured, tapping his fingers nervously against the table. Emma took a deep breath and met his eyes, her heart pounding. "But every time we say no, we let Richard win. We can't let fear control us anymore." The room fell silent. It was a moment of collective realization. Their shared struggles had brought them here. For once, they could challenge the status quo. They leaned in closer, listening as Emma explained the exchange they had seen. As she spoke, the energy shifted, indignation swelled, and a sense of camaraderie arose. They were no longer just struggling individuals but a formidable group fueled by a common enemy. But the stakes were higher than they realized. They weren't just fighting for their livelihoods but for a legacy of dignity. After the meeting, whispers of solidarity turned to discussions about gathering proof, documenting Richard's every move. Emma watched as the spark in her neighbor's eyes ignited hope where there had only been despair. Little did they know, Richard was already aware of their stirring. From the office high above their street, he watched through tinted glass, a sinister smile creeping across his face. "Fools," he whispered to himself, collecting evidence of his own to crush the uprising before it even began. The battle lines were drawn. Emma and Jake felt a rush of resolve, but uncertainty still lingered. As they turned in for the night, they knew the path ahead would not just test their courage but might demand sacrifices they couldn't yet fathom. Would their community hold together in this fight? Or would Richard's underhanded retaliation tear them apart before their plan could even begin? The next day arrived with a sky the color of ash, as if the clouds were warning them of the storm ahead. Emma and Jake stood by the breakfast table, their thoughts racing as their mom poured milk into cereal bowls. The ticking of the clock felt like a countdown to an impending battle. "Are you too excited about school?" she asked, trying to lighten the mood. But the words fell flat. Emma's stomach twisted. "Yeah, sure," Jake replied, his tone absent. They hurried through breakfast, glancing at each other anxiously. They couldn't shake the feeling that every second counted. At school, chatter filled the hallways, but Emma and Jake were lost in their own thoughts. They avoided their usual group, feeling burdened by a secret that weighed heavier with every passing moment. During lunch, Emma nibbled on a peanut butter sandwich, her eyes scanning the cafeteria, searching for familiar faces. She saw a few friends exchanging gossip, laughter ringing out, but her heart felt heavy. How could she participate in normal teenage life knowing what was at stake? "Emma, you okay? You seem off," Lucy asked, her brow furrowing. "Yeah, just a lot on my mind," Emma replied, forcing a smile. Lucy didn't press, but Emma caught a look of concern flash across her face. Later that day, Emma and Jake slipped away to their favorite spot behind the school, a small grove of trees where they could breathe for a moment. "Do you think we're really ready for this?" Jake asked, leaning against the rough bark. Doubt lingered in his voice, and the worry etched into his features felt too familiar. Emma stood silent, hearing the thrum of her own heartbeat. It doesn't matter if we are, she finally said, her voice steady. We can't let Richard hurt anyone else. The community deserves better. As they left the grove, a new determination flickered in her chest. They had to gather whatever evidence they could before it was too late. Their classmates were oblivious, but Emma could feel the impending darkness in the back of her mind. That afternoon, they began to document Richard's daily routine. They decided to use their phones, capturing snippets of his activities, the shady deals, the late-night meetings. Every detail felt like a piece of a puzzle they were determined to solve. Meanwhile, Richard's awareness sharpened. His eyes narrowed ever so slightly as he noticed times when employees slipped out, wary glances exchanged. He couldn't quite put his finger on it, but the unease in his gut grew. Weeks passed, and whispers morphed into plans. The residents had come together, their resolve building like a wave. They began to gather evidence too, knocking on doors, interviewing their neighbors who had been affected by Richard's tactics. Emma felt the weight of hope entwined with fear. Each face carried stories, families torn apart by financial strain. It fueled her fire, ignited her need to fight. But with every step they took, the shadows lengthened. Emma had noticed strange cars nosing around their neighborhood, their occupants scanning the streets. It felt intrusive, ominous, as though Richard had eyes everywhere. At home, conversations around the dinner table became charged with silence. Jake studied their mother, his heart aching for her unspoken worries. Emma felt it too. They were dancing on a knife's edge. That night, as they lay in bed, Emma's phone buzzed. A message from one of their neighbors cracked open a crackling sense of alarm. I saw Richard talking to someone near my house. It didn't look right. Be careful. Emma felt her breath hitch. What did that mean? Was he on to them? As adrenaline surged through her veins, Emma's resolve only strengthened. They were close to something. And the moment they uncovered the truth might shatter everything they thought they knew. But what if revealing Richard's secrets put everyone they loved in danger? In the echoing silence of the night, shadows loomed larger than ever before. Emma squeezed her eyes shut, heart racing. How far were they truly willing to go? The very next morning, a knock echoed through the stillness, rattling her resolve. The door swung open, and the shadow in the doorway looked all too familiar. It was Richard himself, and he didn't appear to be in a friendly mood. What did he want? And how far would he go to protect his empire? Richard stepped inside, backlit by the soft morning light filtering through the door. The air shifted, charged with an unsettling energy. Emma's heart dropped as she took a step back, searching for Jake's reassuring presence, but he was frozen, wide-eyed and pale. What do you want, Richard? Emma managed, her voice barely above a whisper. Fear sliced through her, but she couldn't let it show. Not now. I think it's time we talked, he replied, his voice smooth yet laced with an undercurrent of menace. I've been hearing some interesting things about you too. The way he said it sent a shiver down her spine, the unspoken threat hanging between them like an electric wire. Emma exchanged a quick glance with Jake. Silent communication rushed between them, a mix of caution and alarm. They knew they had to tread carefully. What do you mean? Jake finally spoke up, his voice quivering slightly. You can't intimidate us. We're not afraid of you. Richard's smile was short-lived, a thin line that didn't quite reach his eyes. That's cute. But it's not about intimidation, at least, not yet, he said, as he stepped further into their home, invading their space. It's about understanding who the enemy really is. Emma felt the walls pressing in. The kitchen, once a safe haven, felt claustrophobic. We're not enemies, she shot back, summoning whatever courage remained inside her. We're just trying to help. Richard laughed, a cold sound that echoed in the kitchen. Help? By digging into things that don't concern you? You think you're doing the community a favor. But all you're doing is stirring up trouble. She could hear the dull thud of her heart, the urgency of their mission weighing heavily in her mind. They had worked so hard, but now everything felt exposed, hanging by a thread. "We won't let you hurt anyone," Emma said defiantly. "We're going to make sure everyone knows what you're doing." For a fleeting moment, a flicker of rage crossed Richard's face, and Emma felt a rush of panic. What would he do if she pushed him too far? But then, he regained composure, folding his arms with a chilling calm. "You might want to reconsider," he said, his voice low and threatening. "There are consequences when you play in the big leagues. And trust me, the outcomes will be messy." Jake's fists clenched at his sides. "We're not afraid of messy," he replied, his voice shaky but resolute. "We're not backing down. It's time someone stood up to you." "Brave words, kid," Richard said, his eyes narrowing. "But bravery without strategy is foolishness. Think about your family before you chase this fantasy." With that, he turned on his heel, a sinister satisfaction radiating from his form as he walked out, leaving tension hanging in the air like a storm cloud. Emma felt the ground shift beneath her feet. They had taken a stand, but at what cost? She turned to Jake, who wore a mix of anger and doubt. "What do we do now?" he asked, his voice steadying. Before she could respond, the familiar buzz of a phone broke the tension. It was an alert from their neighbor, glinting ominously in the light. "Urgent. Richard is planning something big. We need to meet. Now." Emma felt a brewing storm of adrenaline kick in again. This was it. It wasn't just about them anymore. It was all or nothing. With renewed determination and fear, she looked at Jake. "We need to figure out what Richard is planning. It's now or never." But as they rushed out, a seed of doubt planted in her mind. What if the confrontation had set off a chain reaction they never anticipated? A sense of urgency wrapped around them, each step leading into the unknown. As they reached the meeting point, the air turned electric with tension. But even as they prepared for the next step, shadows loomed, darker and closer than before. Would they uncover the truth, or would they reveal secrets better left buried? Emma and Jake burst through the door of their neighbor's house, hearts racing, breathless from the urgency of the moment. The living room was packed. Faces turned toward them, eyes flickering with anxiety and determination. Their neighbors, a tight-knit group often dulled by the routines of suburban life, now had fire in their expressions. "Thank you for coming." Lisa, the ringleader of their little community, called out. "We couldn't wait any longer. Richard is up to something big, and we need to act now before it's too late." Emma's mind whirled. The last encounter with Richard had left her shaken. But now, with the fear of his threats mingling with the flames of resolve, she knew they had to press on. "What do we know?" she demanded, stepping further into the circle, believing every step mattered. "We've been looking into his dealings," Mark, a tech-savvy neighbor who always seemed to have his finger on the pulse of local news, said. "He's buying up property in the area, and it seems linked to a larger development plan that could change everything. It's not just us he's a threat to, it's the entire community." The murmurs grew, bubbling with anger and fear. Emma could feel the energy shift. She glanced at Jake, whose steadfast gaze mirrored her urgency. This was the moment they'd been waiting for. The stakes were bigger than just them now. "What if we expose him?" Jake suggested, stepping forward as the murmurs quieted down. "If we can gather evidence of what he's doing, show the whole community the truth, maybe we can stop him." "That's risky," Lisa replied, her brow furrowed. "Richard won't take this lightly. He'll retaliate. We can't let fear dictate our actions." Emma shot back, the fire building within her. "For too long, he's used intimidation to keep us quiet. We must stand together, and we must act." Another neighbor, Tom, chimed in. "Emma's right. We need to rally everyone, spread the word. But we have to be smart about it. If Richard catches wind of our plans, we'll be in even deeper." Agreed, Mark said. I can set up a secure communication channel. We coordinate discreetly until we have enough evidence. Let us split into groups, Lisa suggested, a spark of solidarity igniting among them. Some of us can look into Richard's business dealings, while others spread the word quietly. We need to protect our homes, our families. As they divided tasks, a wave of determination washed over the room. They were no longer just a collection of neighbors, they were a united front, many against one. Emma felt strength radiate through her, something she hadn't felt before. Being part of this group, she sensed the warmth of protection, the closeness of a community ready to fight back, but then doubt crept in like a shadow. Could they really take him on? Would they all be safe? I can't shake the feeling that he's always one step ahead, Jake murmured, pulling Emma aside. What if this backfires? What if it puts our families in danger? Emma's heart sank at his words, but she pushed back the creeping fear. We can't think like that, Jake. Take action now, or we're letting him win. They exchanged a look, a silent pact to see this through, no matter the cost. As the meeting wrapped up, Emma felt the weight of their choices. Every decision they made could bring them closer to victory or sink them deeper into danger. Yet, there was something undeniable about the adrenaline coursing through her veins. Walking home later, the moon loomed high, casting an eerie glow. Emma felt the night close in around them, the air thick with unspoken threats. As they approached their house, a flicker of movement caught her eye, a shadowy figure lurking in the darkness. Did you see that? Jake whispered, grabbing her arm. Yes, Emma breathed, her pulse quickening. The tension crackled again like static in the air. They halted, hearts pounding, wondering if Richard was already watching, plotting his next move. Would they intercept his schemes before it was too late? As they crept inside, Emma felt the full weight of what lay ahead. The battle lines were drawn, but what would be the next move in this ever-escalating confrontation? Emma lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Shadows danced across the room as the wind rustled the leaves outside. She could still feel the adrenaline from the meeting, a mixture of excitement and dread coiling tightly in her stomach. Next to her, Jake was fast asleep, his face relaxed in peaceful slumber. Emma envied that ease. How could he sleep knowing what they were up against? She turned on her side, trying to shake the worries that felt like a weight pressing down on her. In the weeks that followed, the community became a hive of activity. Each night brought new discussions, strategies, and whispers of rebellion against Richard. As they gathered, a strange sense of kinship grew among the neighbors. They shared more than just plans. Emma listened as they recounted stories of absurd petty grievances Richard had inflicted, his obnoxious loud parties, dismissive remarks, and those snide comments that left scars beneath the surface. Just imagine what this place could be without his influence, Mark said one evening, optimism lightening his tone. A true community, not just a collection of houses. Emma felt that spark ignite, too. She envisioned children playing freely in the streets, neighbors helping each other without fear of intimidation. They needed to take back what belonged to them. They met in the park one weekend, faces shining with determination under the early morning sun. It was remarkable, almost surreal to see them united like this. Lisa handed out flyers, carefully crafted to mobilize others in the neighborhood. Meetings every Thursday. Bring friends. We need people to understand what's at stake, she declared, her energy infectious. Emma joined the group brainstorming ideas, but within each triumphant moment loomed doubt. They still didn't have anything solid against Richard. If they pushed any further, what would be the consequences? Focus on gathering evidence before we go public, Mark cautioned, earning nods from the group. We need a solid foundation to stand on. It'll be easier to sway others once they see the truth. Meanwhile, unease bubbled beneath Emma's surface. Richard's presence loomed over them like a dark cloud, and she couldn't shake that feeling of being watched. One night, as she and Jake strolled home after attending a meeting, Emma paused to take in the quiet darkness around them. Do you feel like he's just lurking, waiting for us to slip up? She asked, her nerves sparking to life again. Jake nodded, his jaw tensed. I don't think he understands what's about to come for him. There was a fleeting flash of bravado in his eyes, and it made her smile momentarily. They turned the corner, and suddenly, without warning, there he was. Richard stood outside his house, the shadows masking his face but revealing his watchful eyes glinting with disquiet. The sight sent a bolt of fear down Emma's spine. Let us move, she whispered urgently to Jake, pulling him away from the scene. But Richard's voice cut through the night like a knife. Running won't help you, kids. You're in way over your heads. Emma wished she could brush off the chilling tone as empty bravado, but something in the way he said it twisted in her stomach. It felt real. It felt dangerous. As they hurried back, heartbeats in sync and dread swirling in the air, Emma realized something vital. This was only the beginning. They were about to awaken something bigger than just themselves, igniting a conflict that Richard might not have anticipated. Would they be ready for what would erupt next? Would Richard's uncovered secrets be enough to shield them from his wrath? The thought of the unknown hung heavily in the air, urging them onward, where the next confrontation lay just around the corner. Emma felt as if every hurried step she took echoed in the night. The chill in the air was nothing compared to the warmth of imminent confrontation burning in her chest. Richard's words lingered in her mind, heavy and laden with threat. She couldn't shake the feeling that he knew something. As they reached their front porch, she turned to Jake, his profile stark against the moonlight. We need to act quickly. If Richard is aware of our plans. Her voice trailed off. Panic washed over her, but she pushed it down. They couldn't show fear. Let us talk to Mark tomorrow, Jake suggested, his eyes steady despite the unease in her heart. We need to rally everyone. If we stand together, he can't intimidate us like this. The following morning, the sun rose with a deceptive ease, its rays not yet warming but illuminating the uncertainty hanging over the neighborhood. With a renewed sense of purpose, Emma rushed to the park where they usually convened for meetings. Her heart beat fast, anticipation mixing with apprehension. When she arrived, Mark was already there, deep in discussion with several neighbors. Emma noticed their faces, eyes flicking nervously toward the ground, whispers filled with concern. They had all felt the pulse of fear that Richard had instilled in them. Emma! Mark exclaimed as she approached. You won't believe what we found out. His voice was infused with urgency. What is it? Emma's breath quickened. Lisa overheard something last night. Richard was seen meeting with someone late in the evening, someone from the real estate office, Mark explained, every word draped in anxiety. That sounds like more than just casual business, Jake interjected. He too had arrived, his brows furrowed tightly together. Emma felt her stomach twist. What are they planning? We might be running out of time, Mark continued, his voice a low whisper. If he's making deals with them, he's trying to secure control over this neighborhood. We have to gather proof of whatever schemes he's up to. It's our only chance to stand against him. That night, as she lay in bed again, her mind swirled with the weight of it all. They couldn't wait anymore. The thought of Richard selling off pieces of their community made her sick. Hours went by, and despite her fatigue, she couldn't close her eyes. A plan formed. They needed to be brave, to gather evidence, and to confront Richard directly. With that resolve burning bright inside, she began to map out their next steps, her heart racing with each thought. The urgency brightened her spirit. The following days turned into a blur of activity. Emma, Jake, and their growing grassroots team started keeping a close watch on Richard, documenting interactions and collecting whispers from neighbors who had previously been quiet. Each snippet of insight brought a sense of unity. But with the thrill of building momentum came a shadow. Emma couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched, that Richard was aware of their gathering energies. Every time she turned around, it felt as if he was just outside of her line of sight, lurking like a predator. On one extraordinary evening, she received a call from an unknown number while working on a flyer in the kitchen. Hesitantly, she answered the phone, the hairs on the back of her neck standing at attention. "Emma," a gruff voice rasped, "I know what you're planning." Her breath caught in her throat. This wasn't just a random caller. "I suggest you stop now, before it's too late," the voice warned. "You wouldn't want to see what happens if you go digging into Richard's affairs." The line went dead, leaving Emma clutching the phone, staring at the walls as dread settled over her again. Suddenly it hit her. They were in the thick of something much larger than she had anticipated. She had no idea how far Richard would fight to protect his kingdom. Would they have the strength to fight back even when the odds were stacked against them? The thought crashed like thunder in her mind. And then with a resolve that pierced through the fear, she knew they would have to strike back harder than ever before. But as she gathered the courage to share what she had learned, a nerve-wracking thought burned in her mind. What if the call had been a warning from someone even closer than Richard? The uncertainty spun her deeper into a fray she hadn't been prepared for, and she realized the next step might be the most dangerous one yet. What if confronting Richard meant unveiling secrets that could change everything for their community or destroy them for good? Emma woke the next morning with a sharp clarity. The sun streamed through her window, but it felt like a veil of comfort had been lifted. Today was the day they would begin to bring their plan into action. As she sat up, a mix of excitement and dread filled her chest. They couldn't afford to waste any more time. She dressed quickly, her hands moving almost mechanically as she mentally mapped out the day. Jake was already waiting for her outside, leaning against his car with an intent expression. "You ready?" he asked, his tone serious but reassuring. "Yeah," Emma replied, but her heart pounded like a drum. "Let us do this." They drove to the park, where Mark had organized the meeting with the neighbors. As they arrived, she felt a surge of hope. The people who showed up were the ones who would fight for their homes, their community. But there was also tension hanging in the air. The threat of Richard and his plans loomed heavily over them. As they gathered in a circle, Emma noticed familiar faces, each one etched with concern but also an undeniable spark of determination. Mark cleared his throat to get everyone's attention. "We need to be brave," he began. "If we're going to face Richard, we have to be united." After several rounds of discussion, Emma felt the need to step up. "What if we confront him directly?" she suggested. "I mean, if we can catch him in the act of making these shady deals, we can show him we won't back down." Gasps of disbelief reverberated around the group, and she knew she was stirring something deep. "We could set up a meeting. If we ask him point blank, it might rattle him enough to slip up. It's risky, but it might just work." Jake nodded, his support giving her courage. "We can gather everyone's findings, present them as a united front. Richard needs to know we're not afraid." Just then, a woman in the back spoke up, her voice shaking. "But what if he retaliates? What if he tries to ruin us?" Emma felt the air thicken with worry. It was a valid fear, one that had crossed her mind more than once. "I get that it's scary, but look at us. We're stronger together. We have each other's backs. That counts for something." The energy shifted as murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Slowly, expressions hardened to resolve. They were all in this together, and they were ready to face whatever came next. As plans took shape, Emma couldn't shake off the warning from the mysterious caller. "Before we go into this, we need to be smart," she said. "Let us keep everything documented and make sure there's no way to misinterpret our evidence. If we're going to fight back, we have to be ready for our worst-case scenario." Everyone nodded, determination flickering through their eyes. Later that evening, as they hung flyers on lampposts, Emma's fears started to creep back in. The shadows felt longer, and images of Richard flashed through her mind. She could see him seething, retaliating, dismantling everything they had fought for. The idea tightened her chest. "Think about it this way," Jake broke into her thoughts, sensing her hesitation. "If we just do nothing, he'll take all of this from us anyway. We can't let fear decide our fate. His words struck a chord. They gathered around Mark's table that night, poring over documents and their notes, fueled by community spirit. They worked tirelessly, determined to unearth dirt on Richard and his dubious dealings, but as the clock ticked deeper into the night, she felt that sense of being watched again. It skulked in the back of her mind like a shadow that refused to dissipate. The following morning, an email blinked in her inbox, its sender hidden behind a mask of anonymity. The subject line read, "I know what's coming." Emma's breath caught. What did it mean? They were stepping closer to the edge, and unbeknownst to her, the next steps they chose would not only challenge their strength but also unravel secrets that left her questioning everything they thought they knew about their community and each other. What awaited them in their confrontation with Richard? And who was reaching out from the dark, warning her away from a path that might forever change their lives? Emma stared at the email, the weight of its uncertainty pressing down on her like a ton of bricks. She felt her stomach twist into knots. What kind of warning was this? The words lingered in her mind, echoing the concern that had become too familiar in the past weeks. "Hey, you alright?" Jake's voice broke through her spiraling thoughts. He stood beside her, concern etched across his handsome face. "Yeah, just got this email," she replied, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. She debated if she should share the contents. "It's ominous." Jake leaned in closer, curiosity piqued. "Let me see." Emma hesitated, then turned the screen toward him. His brow furrowed as he read the line, his expression shifting from confusion to alarm. "That's not good," he said flatly, handing the laptop back. "Do you think it's from Richard?" "I don't know," Emma stammered, her worries compounding. "What if someone is watching us? What if it's someone trying to scare us off?" "No one can scare us off. Not when we have this many people backing us," Jake insisted, his confidence pouring into her like a much-needed burst of energy. "We need to focus on the plan. Find out what Richard is up to." Together, they joined Mark and the others, who were gathered in the living room, going over notes and plotting their next steps. The room buzzed with a sense of urgency, yet beneath it all, tension simmered. "Did you all get a chance to look at the files on Richard? His past dealings?" Mark asked, redirecting everyone's focus. Emma nodded, her heart racing as she recalled the files they'd collected: construction permits, suspicious contracts, and whispers of shady alliances. "We have to present the evidence coherently. Go in prepared." That same woman from the meeting, Linda, spoke up, her voice trembling. "What if he brushes us aside, or worse? We need backup." "I've got friends outside the community," Mark said. "If it comes down to it, I'll reach out to them. We can't afford to go in blind." "What about that email, Emma?" Another neighbor chimed in. "Are we really going to ignore it?" She felt like a weight had dropped in her stomach. "I'll reply. I need to know who this is and what they want." As they sat in a circle, their determination blossoming, Emma clicked the reply button. Her hands trembled slightly, anxiety gnawing at her as she typed out her response, asking for clarity. The reply didn't take long. Minutes later, another email dinged, and this time, it felt cold and unsettling. "Don't trust Mark," it read. "He has plans of his own. You're in too deep." The room held its breath. Everyone turned to Emma. She felt uneasy, like the air had thickened. What does this even mean? She looked to Jake, her heart racing. "Do you think he could be?" "Wait," Jake interrupted, his sharp voice pulling her back from swirling thoughts. "What if it's true? What if Mark is involved?" "What? That's crazy!" Emma exclaimed, her voice softening with disbelief. "He's on our side. He's been fighting Richard just like us." "Or pretending to," Jake pressed gently. "We can't dismiss it. Let us not jump to conclusions without evidence." The room was filled with murmurs. The conversations dipped and flowed between hope and fear, trust and suspicion. Emma glanced around, feeling the weight of distrust. The truth hung over them, precarious and unsettling. Was there someone in their midst with ulterior motives? As night fell, they huddled close around the table, faces illuminated by the soft glow of the lamp. The shadows seemed to whisper secrets that sent a shiver down Emma's spine. "Tomorrow, we confront Richard," Mark declared, breaking the silence. "But we need to go in prepared. If we're going to make a stand, we need to know exactly what we're up against." Emma's heart raced with excitement and dread. She could feel the gravity of their situation hanging like a storm cloud. Their united front was stronger than ever, a flicker of hope in dark circumstances. But as she prepared for the next day, the question clung to her mind: could they really trust everyone in their circle, or was the real battle beginning right at home? What secrets lay hidden in the shadows of their community, waiting for the right moment to surface? The sun peeked over the horizon the following day, casting a warm glow that embraced the neighborhood, pushing shadows away. Maybe it was a sign of hope. Emma felt a surge of energy as she, Jake, and their group gathered at the park. Today would be the day they faced Richard Hale. "He's not going to expect this," Mark declared, his voice confident and steady, though Emma sensed a current of nervousness reverberating beneath it. This was it. A show of strength that they all hoped for, but the dread still loomed. Each neighbor, emboldened by solidarity, shared a mix of determination and fear. Emma felt the weight of the gathered faces, each one a mirror to her own resolve as they prepared to confront the man who had tried to stifle their voices. "Let us remember our purpose," Lisa said, breaking the tension. "This is about protecting our homes and our families." Emma scanned the crowd. She could see not just neighbors but friends, the kind of people who truly mattered. They had faced fears, witnessed struggles, and now were ready to stand together against the threat Richard posed. This wasn't just about business, it was about community. As they walked toward Richard's office, anticipation crackled in the air. Emma's heart raced. Was this courageous? Or foolish? A glance at Jake reassured her, he was the anchor she needed. When they arrived, Richard's sleek building loomed before them like a giant, an imposing structure that echoed his power. He wouldn't see them as a threat. To him, they were just faces in the crowd. But they were more. Together, they ascended the staircase, hearts pounding. Inside, the air was thick with tension. Richard stood at the reception desk, flanked by two associates, his eyes narrowing as the group confronted him. A smile flickered across his face, but it didn't reach his eyes. "What's this? An impromptu reunion?" he sneered, showcasing an arrogant bravado. Emma felt the fire in her chest flare at the sight of him. This was the man who had tried to dismantle their hopes, but today, the community stood firm. "We know what you're doing, Richard," Emma began, her voice steady. "Buying up property to expand your empire will destroy this neighborhood." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. "What you call empire, I call progress," Richard shot back, voice smooth but shaken. "Your little group can't stop change." Emma held her ground. "We're not scared of you anymore. We will gather evidence of all the wrongs you've committed. You've been exploiting our community for your gain." "Evidence?" Richard chuckled darkly. "What evidence do you have? Your children playing with fire." "Children who have stood up to bullies before," Jake interjected, his voice rising. "You underestimate us. We're not alone." With each word, Emma felt strength swell among her neighbors. They were no longer victims, they were fighters. This was their moment to take back control. Richard's demeanor shifted, the mask of confidence slipping as the weight of their united front transformed the atmosphere. "I see you think you have power. But those who rise like you will always fall harder." "Not anymore," Emma replied, her heart pounding. "If we fall together. If you think we're scared of you, you're mistaken. You can't silence our voices." Just then, the office door swung open. A figure stepped inside. Mark's face went pale as he recognized the latest arrival, Laura, a journalist from the local news station, who had been following recent complaints against Richard. "What is happening here?" Laura asked, scanning the room, quickly grasping the tense atmosphere. Emma felt a rush of relief and hope wash over her. Maybe this was the audience they needed. "Who invited the media?" Richard huffed, irritation rising. "I did," Emma said, determination blazing in her eyes. "We're here to stand for our community and defend our homes. And we're done being intimidated." Laura approached, a reporter's notepad in hand. "I need to hear your side of the story." Richard's composure faltered. It was evident he hadn't counted on this. Sensing their chance, Emma and Jake shared their account, the scratches of fear lifted by the freedom of speaking out. The community united in truth, and as they spun their story, Laura jotted down every heartfelt word. Moments later, Emma felt the tide of change shift. Richard, who had once seemed untouchable, now appeared exposed, his threats dissolving before the eyes of the community. "You think this little charade will undermine my business?" he scoffed. "No, Richard. This isn't a charade," Emma shot back. "It's the beginning of accountability." She could see his facade cracking, the knots of confidence loosening at the weight of their unity eclipsing him. As Laura continued to document their collective fight and reveal the darker side of Richard's plans, Emma felt the electricity of hope waft through the air. They had taken the stand that mattered most, spawning new strength in their community, a reminder that sometimes the smallest voices echoed the loudest if united. Days turned to weeks, and as the story aired, the ripple effects began to manifest. People from all corners of Ohio flocked to support Emma and her neighbors, presenting petitions and raising awareness about Richard's unfolding schemes. Their stance had garnered attention, and soon more than just a group of fighters emerged. A movement took flight. Though Richard clung to his power, every complaint, every piece of evidence they gathered chipped away at his empire, and with it, an awakening sparked in the community. Volunteers rallied, discussions blossomed, and solidarity grew. Emma and Jake watched their block transform, from hesitant whispers to vibrant discussions. They witnessed their beloved neighborhood, once shadowed by fear, bloom with resilience, laughter, and unity, becoming a tight-knit haven. "Can you believe this is happening? We did it!" Jake exclaimed one sunny Saturday during a community barbecue, joy emanating from his voice. "Yes. We stood up. We fought back." Emma replied, a smile lighting up her face, the kind that came not just from the victory, but from seeing hope rekindle among their friends and neighbors. And at that moment, standing together amidst the laughter and life, they realized that courage doesn't come from a lack of fear but from the decision to fight despite it. They turned to one another, hearts full, knowing they had transformed not only themselves but sparked the heart of a community made stronger together. It had been a journey of courage, but they had come out not just as defenders of their neighborhood but as champions of belief. They had turned fear into strength and division into unity. As they took in the warmth of their community, with families gathering, laughter ringing out, and a new sense of hope washing over them, Emma understood it wasn't merely about confronting the past, it was about paving the way for a brighter future. This was the moment for transformation, resilience, and above all, love for community, for home, and the conviction that together, they were unstoppable. Now is the time to take action. You need to subscribe immediately to our channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this incredible ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this inspiring transformation. Let us keep the momentum going.